Everybody, it's Chris Buteau. Welcome to the December monthly market report. I'm with Cleveland Street Mortgage, and for the next few minutes, we're going to be talking about the most important topics in the real estate market right now. This is my first attempt at a broader market commentary. Hope it won't be my last, and my purpose is to make us all better informed real estate professionals. Thanks for watching. So the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about, ask the question, when do most listings come on the market? And the question is historically speaking, when do most listings come on the market? And in a normal market, it would be the spring. And you see that highlighted here. You see the red months, April, May, and June. And every year, that's typically what you're going to see. You go into kind of the winter, slower months, and then people come out of their hibernation, and you really see the market start to pick up in the spring. But I'm going to make the case that over the next few months, we're going to see more listings in the winter than we have, historically, and that, of course, has to do with the pandemic and the disruptions that has caused in the marketplace. And the reality is, this is anything but a normal market, and so I think we're going to see quite a few listings occur in the wintertime. And here we have a quote by Jessica Lantz. She's with Behavioral Insights at National Association of Realtors, and she says, home sellers have historically moved when something in their lives has changed: a new baby, a marriage, a divorce, a new job. The pandemic has impacted everyone, and for many, this became an impetus to sell and to make a housing trade. And so she goes on to say the pandemic likely spurred occupants to shorten their home stay as tenure in the home decreased 8 years from 10 years, according to the report. And this is the largest single year change in home tenure since NAR began collecting this data. So what changed? And of course, we all know the answer to that. COVID changed everything. And in fact, it was a dramatic change to virtually all of our lives, which caused many of us to rethink our housing situation. We rethought where we live. It introduced the idea of virtual work. It's very widespread now. It's likely a high percentage, or at least a very significant percentage, of hours that used to be conducted in the office at your desk are permanently going to be done from a different location, remotely, from home typically. So it changed where we live, but it also changed the ideal criterion for the house that we live in. And these are significant events that motivated people to sell. And so with these changes, show up in all manner of housing stats, including the average length of homeownership, which has decreased from 10 years to 8 years. As we just said, this is the largest single change in tenure since NAR began tracking this data. And we're going to look at this graphically here in just a second. If you're like me, we grew up and we always sort of understood. We used to say, 5 years was the average life of a loan or the average life in a home. And you can see historically in this graph that was close to true. It wasn't quite true. It was a little bit longer. It was 6 years. This kind of oddball year. Not sure what drove that. All the way up to the crash. And then for obvious reasons, the crash happened and a lot of equity disappeared. People didn't have the equity to move. Usually if you're a move-up buyer, it takes equity to move from one house to a more expensive house. A lot of that equity dried up. We also saw kids who grew up kind of during that initial crisis, 2008, 2009, saw their parents struggle through that. That delayed their ownership period. And so we saw the people who owned homes delay their sales period. The people who would otherwise be entering into the market delay their entrance into the market. And the end result was we saw, we went from 6 years to 8 to 7 to 8 to 9 to 10 years. And we kind of bounced between 9 and 10 years. And then here comes the pandemic. And now we're dropping back down to 8 years again. And so we're seeing that tenure is coming down, and it's a very interesting thing to look at. And what this, I think, represents is pent-up demand. Sorry, we went backwards.